I launched Cell Division a few months later and started brewing around March, April that year. And my first beer was released around June or July, I think. That was my first beer was actually entirely fermented with a sourdough culture, which I picked up from my good friends at the Port Cider. That was called John Doe. So sourdough sour ale. We then a couple of years later did a collab with Craftwork with that same culture, and a little bit of it is probably another sourdough culture sticking around with the collab I've got going with Wilderness, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So I've been brewing for about 10 years. Started home brewing 2012. Just a shitty kit that my partner and I decided we'd have a go at, and I was hooked immediately. So I homebrewed for 5 years and then decided to go pro. So I'm pretty small. I've scaled up now to 100-litre plant.
It's pro without quitting your main job, though, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, don't quit your day job. It's true.
So you're at the university, right?
I was in Dean at university initially. Went down there about '93 and stayed on. I studied for a long time. Did my PhD in neuroscience. So I'm a neuroscientist.
Oh, different kind of cells. The ones that the one that Kelly kills.
Yeah. Just culling.
Yeah. All right. So Dunedin, we quit our jobs down there a couple of years ago to go traveling, and that didn't happen. So I'm set up at Peckham Cidery. I sort of canned the brewing for about a year just because of family reasons. I was really busy, and then they offered me a space, so I pretty much take everything there and leave nothing but fermenting work behind. I've got a project in a barrel there, and we've done lots of collabs, so that's been really cool. Alex is a bit of a genius, and so we come at it from different angles. And the first was Firegraph. I don't know how many people have had Firegraph.
No, I didn't see that one.
No, I haven't seen that.
We both really love this project. So the fire component of it is their cider evaporated over an open fire in basically it's like a maple syrup evaporator, which came about through their working with a couple called Rough Hands, who make apple brandy. And part of that, they wanted to have an evaporator.
They do a reduction for that.
Yeah, concentration of the sugars. So Fritz and Maria, who used to be part of distillation set up here in Nelson, and they've got their own project now. It's just come out as Elsewhen. It's a small world. They actually make their product with apples that my father used to grow and now I grow. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we've become friends, and do something from the three of us will come out in due course. But anyway, Firegraph was like a red saison base with a concentrated cider base, 50-50 pretty much. And we fermented it with a strain of French saison yeast, and it's around 12.9%.
Whoa.
You wouldn't know it. I don't know if any of you have had it.
You would when you stood up. You would when you stood up.
Yeah, you notice it after you've been drinking it. So that's Firegraph. And then the next one we did was right around, it actually coincided with the total lunar eclipse. Kelly's had this one. It was a Belgian strong ale base. So it actually had base of 8 malts in it. Quite a lot of hop, and tend to build these things to be quite big because everything's going to be pretty much cut in half because there's 50% cider component in there.
Right.
And we'll
So
always
does
talk.
that mean more of the beer side crosses over then?
It changes. So when they're young, they start out as being more beer forward, and as they age, the cider component always comes up every single time.
Okay.
And it's really interesting.
I should have held on to
Why?
one.
I think maybe the beer,
See what
yeah.
it's like.
the beer component just mellows a little bit over time. But this
So, and you went to can rather than bottle for because that's what Peckham's production is, keeps it easy.
Yeah, it's a nicer format in some ways because it's smaller, makes it more affordable for people, especially like when they're ridiculously high ABV, like 13. Yeah, and they've got a good little canning line. It's just otherwise it's 750ml. We've done a few kegs for bars that goes down well, but you know they're.
I tried at Port Cider. It had finished at Port Cider, and that they'd put they had a Craftwork keg on of something Maybell was it? The
Brussels Maybell.
Yeah. Which I didn't miss. It was I had two little two that size in there. It was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, Port Cider is great. Actually, we sampled some of Craftworks beers before a lot of people did when they sent it to the Port Cider, and we were sitting around there before they were out on the market.
Yeah.
So, and then not long after that, we became friends, Craftwork and myself. So actually, right before lockdown, I knew I was going traveling and I wanted to have something still going. So Craftwork were kind enough to let me come up and brew enough to fill a barrel. And
so you used their kit for that?
Yeah, I used their kit. And I don't know if any of you came across Wild. Being in Auckland, probably not. The original Wild started from a capture from In My Garden one night, put out like a mini coolship, tiny little pot.
Yeah, I went to that workshop at Fridge and Flagon.
That's right. Yeah. At then, Reese. And like all my cultures, I just keep them alive and continually feed them. So that one's still going. I've kept some in Dunedin, I've got some here. And before I left, I put down a brew with the Wild culture, which is very Brett dominant. And it's picked up a little bit of something from the barrel this time. It's got a nice little lemony acidity. And so I took a little bit of that, and you're the first to know, Craftwork has some of it, and some of it will come out as another project. So
cool.
Failing disasters. So Craftwork, Cell Division and Wilderness, but I probably will let you snip that out before you put it up anyway.
Timestamp, Clive.
Yeah, so I didn't really have the ability to bottle that easily at that point, so it just went out as 4 little 20 little kegs, which people seem to really enjoy. But
so the culture, have you kept the culture on slants as well? You've got that restored?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a scientist, I could do all that stuff, but I prefer to I've chosen just to keep them perpetually alive.
Well, who's feeding it in Dunedin? You haven't left it up to a student.
They're just fending for themselves, and we'll see what happens to those. The ones I've got here are just they're virtual copies of it, and I'll feed them every once in a while.
So you just do that? You just put a little bit of water in, do you? Or
it's just like making a starter. So you feed a little bit of starter to them, maybe chuck some out, feed them up again. When I visited the States a few years ago, I went to New Belgium, and they have like the oldest continually running house culture, which they initially built up of dregs and bits and pieces for all over the place, but it's still alive. They just perpetually feed it, and they fill up a new further, and they just take a little beer from one and put it in that, and away it goes. So they might drift and change a bit over time, but I'm always.
How do you stop these starters from getting their pH dropping way too low?
Well, I don't. They're pretty tolerant. There is a ton of Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, Brettanomyces, Saccharomyces, everything in my main house culture. And they're all really used to that environment.
Okay.
So it's not like putting a yeast straight into an acid environment that it doesn't know. They're really hardy.
So the pH would be 4.5 or something, or lower?
Oh no. If I leave it long enough, it'll be well down in the 3s.
Right.
Yeah, it's a sour beer culture there for sure. With that, talking about that, I have a new release coming up in a few weeks. Just depends when it's really ready. It's in the bottle now. It's tasting really great. Another one I put down right before I tucked it away, actually, the night before lockdown. And when I was back down in Dunedin last year, I picked it up, brought it back up here and fruited it at the age of about 18 months. It's been on fruit from the garden here for about 5 months and recently bottled. So it'll come out, it'll be about 2 years old.
So what fruit did you put that on?
Fruit, this time I put it on Louisa plums, or a yellow plum. Long egg, amazing flavour, sort of kind of peachy.
Funny you should talk about Louisa plums. We met them for the first time last week, and we turned them into jam. Beautiful plum.
Amazing flavour, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really intense, but not too sour. That's always a good
great.
thing.
Yeah, really great.
Yeah. Always a good thing when you have a sour beer, to not, if it's really sour, to not add a whole lot of really sour fruit, because you push it over the edge.
Right.
I like to have my sour beers running the gamut of acidity, but hopefully never so sour that you only want just a little bit.
Well, did you see that Garage Project one where they actually released the bottle with a syrup attached? And that was kind of, I mean, if you ever go too far, I guess that's always an option. You've got access to fruit that you can make syrup from, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole idea behind the adding syrups to traditional Berliner Weisses, because they used to be really acidic. There'll be a lot of acetic.
Acetic?
Yeah, acetic. The old traditional ways of brewing just get really punchy, so add a bit of syrup. Yeah. But
do you have access to Wardroff?
No, I haven't. I have not personally. No.
You might have to get yourself a plant and get that as part of your orchard.
Yeah, we've talked about maybe doing syrups. Garage Project's done it now. So.
Yeah. Pipped you. They've done fucking everything, haven't they? They'll be making beer out of toe jam next. So when you do your collab brews with Peckham's, what's your source of wort? Are you?
Oh yeah, so I've got a fully mobile kit. Actually, it's a brew in a bag essentially. I always thought those were a bit shoddy homebrew, but I picked up a really great one from the US, really fine nylon mesh. Essentially, it's like a less elaborate brewmaster or a grainfather. You just got a vessel within a vessel, so that allows me to be quite mobile. Was it 115 litre kettle I've got? So that's a kettle and a mash tun.
So how big a mash can you get in there?
How big a mash? I can get up to around about 30 kilograms in there, if I remember rightly.
Right. So you've got some sort of crane apparatus then.
Oh yeah, it's a big winch, and that's allowed me to drill holes in his beams and set that up. And so no, it works really well. And I've seen no change in what comes out of my usual 3-vessel system I have in Dunedin, which was smaller. It was 50 litres. But yeah.
So what do Peckham say to you when you turn up with your very low pH beer and run it through their can machine? Do they cross themselves?
Yeah, I haven't done that. I wouldn't do that to them. So the beer I have coming out now is all been bottled by hand. Yeah, I wouldn't run my funk through their system because.
Okay, well, the reason I asked the question was
Yeah.
because you've done the collab with Peckham's.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
How do we can? As
Yeah.
normal. I mean, it's not hugely low pH. These are not sour beers we've done. They're just saison and Belgian dark ale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Understand. Yeah.
There's a level of acidity, but they're not high.
I think Ian was more concerned about the other cultures, the Lactobacillus and the
they were pretty kicking around there because a lot of what they do is wild, and they do pasteurize. But no,
and they must flush the machine
they do.
Yeah,
they'll push Shoxonia or whatever through it and clean it. But no, I wouldn't wish that on them. And yeah. Hello. Oh, Kelly's making noises there, so he's popped on the screen. He's not saying anything.
I got my food delivered.
What are you eating tonight, Kelly?
I've got some stir fry with prawns. Actually, looks pretty good. Should go okay with the saison.
Yeah, cool.
What saison you got, Kelly?
It's the Monk Life from Ground Up. Oh, if the can will show. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Had a couple of Belgian numbers earlier, so thought I'd go with it.
So maybe I should open something myself. I've had a few already, but it's been a long week.
So you're just releasing a
I've been working
named after your sister.
Yeah, I did. I've been working about 7 days straight just because I had to rush and get everything kegged up and packaged and sent out to everyone before the apple pear season got really busy. And this is the one that's been sent out. So it's Linda. My father found the apple variety that we've used for this as a wild seedling growing on the boundary of his property. He's had quite a few new varieties just by finding things that have popped up.
So they're wild cross pollinations, are they?
Yeah, and we think they taste and look like they're a cross between a Golden Delicious. If you've been around long enough, you'll remember those, and also a very old, often cooking apple called a Sturma, which have quite a lot of acidity, a really great flavour, but they've got that light crispness of a Golden Delicious as well. So when my partner and I first came up here, when we went to level 3, 2020, was it? Yep. Allowed us to come up to Nelson instead of going travelling. We picked some of these apples and had a go using my mum's old Kenwood mixer juicer and made my first ever batch of cider. Amazingly, I lived on an orchard all those years, but that turned out to be really beautiful with lots of really fruity elderflower notes, and shared that with Alex Peckham, and he really liked it. So this next time round, next crop, we juiced a whole bunch, took the whole crop. It's not a huge crop, just a few trees, and we filled 2
How
barrels.
many kilos do you get off that then?
I think there might have been like 2.5 bins, so we're talking probably like 500 kilos, something like that.
Wow.
So we filled two ex Chardonnay barrels with that cider after initial open ferment in a stainless steel vessel. Pumped that into the barrels and left them for a good many months. But part of that was left over. There was excess juice, so I took 60 litres and I added one of my cultures to it. So farmhouse Brett culture that I'd used previously in other beers, and it's turned out to be showed quite a bit of deviation from the other one, which will come out. It's called the Orchardist, It'll come out in a little while. This one.
So there's no. So this is cider only. There's no beer. It's pure cider.
Yeah. So this is it. It's lightly carbonated to not accentuate the sourness too much.
So it's a Bretted cider. Interesting.
Cider, yeah. Mixed ferment cider. Very pale as the juice is. Lots of spicy sort of phenolic, fruity Brettanomyces notes. A little bit of the elderflower comes through.
But did you add elderflower, or that's just part of the?
It's
Part
just
of the spontaneous.
apple character. They are quite elderflowery. The ferment really brings that out. It's more prominent in the non-Bretted variety. They sort of get more pineapple and a greater, maybe more complexity in this one, but this one you'll find in Auckland in limited amounts at 16 tonne. Beer Jerk has a little more because they distribute, obviously.
So it would be in the keg at beer, 16 tonne, or in the can?
At the moment, kegs are pending, but yep, hopefully if we've got those, we'll send them up. Not the Linda, sorry, that'll be the Orchardist. Linda is cans only. There were 12 dozen available. That's it. So
Oh, golly.
12 dozen.
12 dozen, yeah.
Yeah, with the 60, you said 60 litres, so there you go, yeah.
Yeah, and it is more than tart. I believe most of that's come from Brettanomyces. Now, Brettanomyces does not make sour beers, but Brettanomyces and oxygen will give it a little acidic, and I believe that's what's happening here. It's not harsh, but just lifts it a little bit. It's cool. It's different. I haven't had anything like it, so.
Well done. We look forward to trying. We'll have to, Dave, we need to secure a case.
Not a case.
A six-pack.
one each. There's only what is there? There's only 3 dozen available in Auckland. So
Yeah.
the Orchardist, there are like 41 cases. So hang out for that one.
Well, who's keen on doing a ram raid into Beer Jerk? We could Fritz and Flagon. We can ram raid the. Well, I won't do it in the Lotus, but someone's got bull bars or something. We can. So tell us about the Orchardist.
The Orchardist, I haven't tasted that for a while.
Oh, we can let you finish the other one. You can talk about other stuff. And we can
Yeah, I don't have the Orchardist with me. It was just
okay.
scheduled yesterday, actually. So that's getting ready. It's really bright and fruity. And like I say, it's definitely got elderflower notes. It's just really beautiful, floral and elderflower. It's not acid. It doesn't have.
So what were the apples going in that one?
Same. They're Linda. So that was the 2 barrels, and the Orchardist was the 60 litres.
Oh, I see.
All Linda apples. Yeah.
Right. So it was the same batch, and the Linda was
Same
the
batch,
Bretted version.
yeah.
Right. Understood.
Same batch, treated differently.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yep. No, this
Are
one,
plans to propagate more from the trees and plant more out, or?
yeah, I know. It's a little bit of a project of mine to save that. It was something special to my dad. Yeah, he's had a few interesting special varieties that over the years. A red Cox, a fully red Cox, and that used to get lapped up by Marks and Spencers in the UK. One of his previous employees actually saw them sell for £1 an apple.
Wow.
Yeah,
Gosh.
way back. A unique pear variety he also has that I need to preserve. So yeah, he left a lot behind. But so these
When did it pass?
been a celebration of him in many ways.
When did your dad pass?
back last June. Yeah. So I'm running the orchard one more year here. Then I need to go back to scientist work.
No, just stick to brewing and orchards and.
No money in it. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Well, we all find that out.
Yeah. So what else? Last year, what else we did? We headed down to Wilderness to hang out with Oliver Drake and Hannah, his wife, and we spent a day brewing a beer with 0 electricity, no gas. Go and
Was
check
that
out
intentional?
if you're really interested in see. Hello, David. Did you see
Hey,
that
mate, how are you?
on my Facebook page? I think you did. We lit up a fire and we had lots of vessels outside. We lautered it through a stack of barley straw. It was cool shipped. It got one of my sourdough cultures, which came from Pip down at Port Cider and Dunedin, was pitched in. So lots of bugs. It was put into a barrel that was previously held my beer Wild, which before that lived at Craftwork, which was topped up with some of their lambic. So it's got bugs galore in there. So it's moving really quickly. I was down there a few months ago and it was already tasting very promising. So Ollie
So is that one barrel's worth again?
yeah, 1 barrel. That's a lot for me.
280 litres. Yeah. Oh, we need to crowdfund you and get you mini barrels, I think.
Yeah, I love barrels. I have a barrel that I've borrowed from Peckham's, which previously held a cider collab, which isn't out yet. Has my house culture in it. So we just emptied it and then I filled it up with beer straight away. So we'll see where that goes. They're always risky. You never know fully what's going to happen. That's the fun of wild and experimenting. Yeah.
So what if you go back to Dunedin, which I assume that's what you mean, what's going to happen to your orchard or your dad's orchard?
Well, either someone might leave some in the trees. I'm currently picking 1,000 beautiful pear trees. Probably pick about 50 ton off of those.
Oh, wow.
So maybe someone will lease them. Dad loved those trees. And my mum's still here on the orchard. And a lot of it's getting quite old. So it may well just get pulled out. He's pulled it out over the years. He was 89 and still running the orchard. So we whittled it down to about 10 acres in the end. Still a lot of work. I work on it part-time, which has allowed me to indulge in my brewing a bit more. It's been good. Yep.
Hey, Jamie, I'm just trying to figure out what it's interesting to listen to your background and kind of the way you go about these things. So your passion sounds like it's really about the orchard, the tradition, the culture, and the orchard. And your knowledge as a scientist just kind of gotten to making these beers and sour. Is that fair? What are you thinking?
What am I thinking? You're very softly spoken, and my hearing is not 100%. So I'm not quite sure on your question.
So let me repeat that. So I was listening to your story. So it sounds like the big background that you're talking about is primarily around the tradition and the heritage, and you're handing over these orchards of apples and fruits that you had.
Yeah.
You've kind of gotten in there and you started fermenting and kind of focused on sour.
Yeah.
It's just kind of understanding. I mean, you obviously make some fantastic product, but just kind of understanding your passion and what's driving you to the next step and what you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I look actually looking back, because on the orchard as a kid, I'd see mounds of apples. I've talked about this before, and there'd be like lots of drunk native birds on them, and they'd be fermenting. They were just like rejects. And I love the smell and the funk that came out of it. Fast forward the clock, like, I don't know, over 30 years, and I've realized what I could do with that. So maybe it's always been there. I used to juice apples and marvel at the fact that they became alcoholic pretty quickly as a kid. Then it got tipped down the drain because that's not what I wanted. I don't know. I grew up connected to the land, but didn't want to be on it. And now I found myself back here through, thanks to COVID. We were supposed to be traveling, and then my dad got sick, so I turned into an orchardist, and I've loved it. But
It's time to breed, Jamie.
huh?
Time to breed.
Breed? Oh no, no, I'm too old for that. Really, I'll be 50 in June. So, yeah, no.
I chose second wife.
No, I chose not to have kids, and my babies are my beers for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, how did I come to be a sour beer brewer? It just sort of happened. I was brewing regular beers.
So the timing of that homebrew conference and meeting.
Yeah, I'd already kicked into doing sour beers, and I think what really kicked me off was you probably surely you've heard of Beer Without Borders and Hashikazaki and all the really cool beers that they were bringing in, things like Almanac and Tuol and the likes, and even your Rodenbachs and really cool ones. I remember going up to Wellington, going to Hashiko, and I'd never had a sour beer, and I'd seen people checking them in on Untapped, and I was really keen to try them. And once I had that, it was just changed what I wanted to be brewing. And so the first sour beer I ever brewed was a Berliner Weiss, not a kettle sour. I don't. They have the place, but I don't do kettle sours. Always mixed fermentation, and you get a much fuller, fruitier result because of the interaction between the lactobacillus and the Saccharomyces working together rather than separately. Kettle sours can be great, done well, but that's not what I'm about.
When you bring a traditional Berliner Weiss in that style, are you letting Sac do its thing first and then pitching lacto, or are you pitching them both at the same time?
Always at the same time. I always used to go on, it wants to be a fairly generous pitch of lactobacillus, but that's more of a time thing, I think. It's amazing how often like a really dry beer that you don't think's got a lot left in it will still become quite sour. So it all depends on your mixer bugs, I think.
So what was your source for lactobacillus for that?
For that one, that's a personal mix. We'll call it a proprietary blend of lactobacillus. Some of them are commercially available, some are available off the shelf, but yep.
Have you tried doing it just straight grain before?
No. A friend of mine did recently. He had great success. He's a German scientist friend of mine. He did that, made a lemon gose. I haven't tried it, but he was really pleased with it. Really risky process because you could pick up all sorts of stuff off grain. Be really important to keep oxygen out of that, I'd say, because you just potentially get really nasty acidic. I've heard of people getting really gross vomity results from it. So yeah, butyric acid. So no, I've never done it straight off grain, but you can, and some people have success with it.
Well, the traditional German guys always only used wheat as their source. Like they didn't use their acidulated malt because that often did go a little bit funky.
Right.
Well, like Berliner Weiss, I think the original cultures for it were always basically based off wheat grains. They found that there was less rampant.
Yeah, and then companies come along and they isolate the lacto and they put it in packages and sell it to us. So
Yeah, but then you end up with a beer that's as boring as hell. I mean, those traditional, I've only had them 3 or 4 times, but those traditional Berliner
Yeah.
Weiss that you get, just they're such a good beer. They've got so much depth.
yeah.
So your hopping schedules must be quite light. So when you do use hops, what do you use and what are you looking for?
Well, it really depends on the beer. So Berliner Weiss, Geyser, yeah, they're quite light, hoppy, not hoppy beers. You don't want a whole lot of hop in there because that just retards the lactobacillus, unless you've got a really grunty strain, maybe one you've had in house that's got up a tolerance for IBUs. So to keep those really low, I try and look for. I generally use things that are sort of herbaceous, spicy.
Oh, herbaceous. Oh,
Herbaceous,
that's interesting.
just something to add an undertone. You know it's there when you brew it. It's not always in the final beer, but I think if you took it away,
Right.
yeah, I tend to use for things like that, sort of more floral.
So it's more layering then.
Layering, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're not upfront, obviously. In a lot of my longer term sour beers, they're actually pretty heavily hopped, like really heavily hopped. You wouldn't know it. That bitterness all just disappears over time. But then some of my cultures are grunty, others won't handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you say, I mean, over 25 IBUs?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of getting up there, but I guess that a lot of that gets scrubbed away over time, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, fairly quickly. With
Are you using it to manage lacto levels, or are you just basing it on flavor profile that you're after?
Sorry, I missed the first bit.
Using choosing the level of IBUs or hop bitterness that you go to manage lacto levels, or are you just using it based on flavor profile that you're after?
Yeah, it does manage acidity to a degree. So yep, and you'll find that some cultures get more and more grunty over time. So that does help. But part of it's also getting a flavor profile. So I try to choose hops that will complement the kind of flavors that my cultures will throw. So yep, stone fruity. So my main, you've had things like pulp, stone fruity. I don't know if you got isolation up there. Isolation is it's kind of a slightly red version of the pulp and base, but with no fruit, and it was very, very stone fruity with absolutely no fruit in it. So that's kind of interesting.
I've been rationing your beers over the last 2 years because you haven't been producing it. I think I've got one of your pear left, and that's about that.
It could well
the
be
pear.
the very last Le Poirier Brett, which was brewed with pears off of this orchard.
Awesome.
Yeah. I said to Dad, what's your most tasty pear? And he said these Word and Sickle. So beautiful little teardrop shape, sort of yellow pears.
Will you call it the pear?
When you're talking about that, because you're probably one of the few people that's played around with with different hopping levels, locally in terms of your beers. As you find the hop bitterness drops back, and the alphas break down with age, do you find you get any sort of do you find your cultures then start reproducing, increasing the acidity as they age? Or once the hop interactions happen with the wild yeast, it sort of tends to sort of sit at that kind of level? I mean, are you noticing an increase in acidity over time as the alphas break down?
Yeah, I'd say probably. Yeah, hadn't really thought about that before because it's I leave it alone a lot.
You're a very patient man.
Yeah, just I'm always playing around with different iterations of this culture's expression depending on what you throw at it or what temperature it sits at over an extended period of time.
Yeah, so how are you monitoring that?
How am I just stick it somewhere cool or not. If you're lucky, you've got somewhere really stable, which I've worked with, like colder area, or somewhere I might try and maintain the heat, like a warm room, or not too warm, like craft
For a period of time, or
for a period of time, yeah. Just until you feel like they're ready, or maybe you just go and leave it for longer, like the beer I'm preparing to release in a little while is called the Eternal. It's nearly 2 years old, and so David, you had pulp. Yeah, it's not pulp, but it's kind of an iteration on that. It's been given
Cool.
a longer, cooler maturation, and then a fruiting, and when it's 18 months old, and now it's coming on 2 years. So
would that be like 16 degrees or something like that? Or
yeah, probably around 15, 16, I think. Yeah, in Dunedin.
Well, Dunedin summer.
you need a bat cave, don't you?
Yeah, and a gradation of temperatures.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Larry Seidel from Crux Fermentation at Beervana a few years ago, and he was talking about his not wild, they may be wild, but his barrel projects with funk, and like having them up in the loft, and some of them were under sort of direct sunlight, and how amazing it was, how different they were, because they were warmer from the same cultures, same base that's somewhere else, which is cooler.
Then I guess you could blend both of those as well, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And end up with something, another dimension again.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I quite admire what you're doing there, Jamie, because I mean, you're obviously making small batches, and I mean, your ability to, repeat and make the exact same batch next time must be just not really a happening thing, eh?
Yeah, they're kind of close. They really are. If I talk about, no, they're really close. I don't know. You embrace little variation, and keep an eye on where that's coming from, and maybe take that forward into another beer. But they are. You get to know your cultures. That's what's great about not just buying them off the shelf all the time and doing something different. You work with it over time, and becomes very much yours. My main house culture just evolved, but as a happy accident in a way, was some Brett from a bottle, dregs, and bugs off of apricots, and the beer turned out to be something. The first time I did that was a home brew, like a surprise in a way, and I've kept that ever since, and it's pretty much held true to itself.
So both cultures continue over time.
Yeah.
One doesn't dominate. That's the kind of interesting thing, right?
Seems to hold a relative steadiness. Maybe it's getting stronger over time, like.
Because you think the Brett might dominate or something,
No, it doesn't. It's incredibly strong fruity Brett. It's very strong because it eats up, if you chuck it on a saison, it eats up those esters in no time, flat. So.
Is there any difference in terms of its performance and how it likes Nelson versus Dunedin, or are you keeping all your stuff down Dunedin? I presume you've got your cultures and your brewing up in Nelson at the moment.
Time will tell on that. I think sort of, because I'm mostly an ambient brewer. I work with the temperatures I've got, as long as they're not all over the place. And so pulp 22 is on the way, and it's really vigorous in what it's doing so far. So that's probably more of a, I'm sure there's no other factor in there other than temperature. So.
Jamie, it sounds to me like you've got the passion that I think all of us had when we were young, but it seems to me that what you need is somebody to give you a big wad of money and say, get on with it,
Yeah.
grow your brand, because
A lot of money with no expectations.
well, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. People have offered.
Mhm.
People I know, but you know, it's
I
like,
was just
yeah,
going to say, I mean, like a lot of your production's small. Is that through choice and giving, you know, in terms of what you're trying to achieve, or is it, you know, resources, or what's the, you know?
yeah, totally. It's by choice. It's about space where you are. It's about not getting overly indebted. They're fun. I mean,
Yeah. Keeping it in the love zone.
Yeah, pulp was 25 liters.
Shit, is that all?
That's all. It was a 50-liter batch, and I took it 2 ways. So, yeah, you're careful about where you place it, and make sure maybe the right people get it. But no, I'm 100 liters now. It's hard to go back on that. So no, I'd like to be a bit bigger for sure, but not massive. I think once you get over a few 100 liters.
Well, apparently the advice to Michael and Leanne from Craftwork from
Yeah.
Richard Emerson was don't go commercial.
Yeah.
But here we are and loving it. So
No, do it. Yeah, I think if you do it, and if you're stupid enough to do it on such a small scale, you've just got to really love it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So your current plan to go back to university and
yeah, maybe back to a job in science somehow. So,
but not university.
it could be. Yeah, that's where a lot of the work is. So we'll see.
So we've got another member of the club, Jeff Gill from Mythica. So he was at the Hawke Research Unit, and now he became an unemployed scientist, and so he started Mythica Brewing. But he's started with a 400-liter kit, which is kind of small, but he's kind of making a living, I guess. You know, it's bloody hard and in these COVID times and all the rest of it. But
Yeah.
I think what Robert was touching on before with your family connections with your orchard and everything, there's got to be something there that it's part of you, you know. So there's, I don't know, yeah.
This time yet.
There's nothing worse, Jamie, than working at a job you don't like, where your passion says, sour, I want to go back.
Yeah.
Follow your dreams.
You can get a good balance. That's the key, and I'll try and find that. It's I tell you, when you're working a 40+ hour job and you're trying to do brewing on the side, and some weeks turn out to be 60-hour weeks, and your brewing eats into your weekend.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you might make a little bit of money, maybe break even. You got to love it, otherwise there's no point. It's not a money-making adventure.
Well, Craftsworks, they were just like you.
Yeah, they were, and they've slowly grown, and hopefully soon their tap room will open.
You did a collab with them though, didn't you?
I did the original collab I did with them was Spondo, so that was followed on from my very first beer that I released in a bottle, John Doe. John Doe was the name of the sourdough culture. So we took John Doe up to Craftwork and did an iteration on that. Changed up the recipe a bit. And
So how many litres was that one?
Bit of rye in there. It was a few years ago now, but that was barrel aged, and I have one bottle left of it. Still tasting really good. I shared a bottle with Ollie Drake down at Wilderness when we went down to the collab. So yeah, they've grown 500 litre kit now. Let's say get up and running. I don't know if that's operational yet, but they're working hard.
They were doing collabs with, oh, not collabs. They were doing the Wart from Ryman Reason. They were driving down.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they're still intending on doing
Right,
that.
the Saison.
Yeah, they did. I'm not sure whether that's probably. I have no idea. That may have
Saison,
stopped now.
Saison production is still done at Ryman Reason and a couple of others, but all their spawn wild stuff still done in Oamaru.
Yeah, I don't know
Well,
what their plans are now.
That would be your other option, is getting other people to do the Wart production, and you just do the barrel the initial ferment and then the barrel programs. You don't set up as a brewery. You take in Wart, like some of the workshops Dave's been talking about. We had recently, where that's some of the models in Belgium where they literally bring Wart in.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I've got an unstable connection here. You're right.
You're looking dark and mysterious about now.
Yeah.
You better light a candle, Jamie.
I am very dark here, and it's getting late. I should probably shoot off soon. And I'm up in my dad's old ham radio shack on the roof.
Okay, and he's still got the whopping great aerial there.
Yeah, he does. We do. How's that?
More scary. Even more scary.
Very Blair Witch.
Yeah, ghost tales.
On the light.
I tell you what, Jamie, I'm a radio ham, and it's so
I don't know
nice.
if he can hear you right now, Ian.
Oh,
Now it looks like a set from a movie.
I thought we were going to hear the story about the hitchhiker.
I just cracked this one.
How's that?
I wonder what you were drinking that you had to use a corkscrew on.
Oh no, that was
Before you go,
that was the
that
wilderness.
is tasting cracking. Eclipse is tasting delish. Man, I haven't had it for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, it's
And it was,
trying.
when I first tried it, it was very much, it was almost split. Like it was almost like a beverage of two halves. You had sort of beer on the front, cider on the back.
They keep
Now
changing.
it's all lovely and integrated.
Yeah.
Shit, it's good.
Thanks. They keep changing. So when we first brewed it, put it together, it was a lot more beer forward. And we snuck off 1 keg of it and sent it down to the Dunedin Winter Beer Fest. And then by the time we came to Canada, it kind of become 2 parts.
Mm.
I felt that integrated, but it was like cider beer. And then all of them today, that after a while, the beer mellows and the cider becomes more prominent. So they
You've done
probably,
well
It's
to
got all
hold
the
on to,
lovely
Dave.
top cider notes, but with a beautiful maltiness that just sits underneath. Man, it's good. Like it's really good.
there's 8 malts in there.
Mm.
Don't ask me what they were.
No. Oh. Yum.
Yeah, thanks.
One of them had special in it.
No, there's no special beer in there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there's Aurora in there. That'll give you nice sort of, I don't know, notes.
Oh, nice.
Of course, it's got wheat in it. Eclipse wheat from Gladfield. Give it a bit of colour. That's actually my portion before it was cut in half with cider was considerably darker than that one. So I set out and try and make it more grunty, knowing that it's going to be reduced somewhat.
Yeah, it's almost got sort of lovely licorice notes like you get in the Belgian double or something like that. It's sitting on top of the malt sweetness. It's just damn good.
Yeah, it's the Abbey yeast.
Mm.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you, Jamie, for sharing your insights and your passions. And
Yeah, no worries. I'm not firing on 100% tonight, but yeah, been super, super busy. I'm not quite as a fried turkey as I thought I was going to be when you asked me to do this. I can stick around for a few minutes. I've still got some Linda. I've been taking it slow on that.
Oh, cool.
Jamie, I've just been writing down a master plan for you here. Okay, you got to keep working your day job
Yeah,
to fund your passion on the brewing and the souring, and then at the same time you got to do this crowdfunding, build your brand, and get out there, man. A little bit bigger batches.
yeah, a little bigger. Slowly. We'll see what happens.
It sounds like it's in you. You want to do it.
Yeah, I'm cautious.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to say before was if you get other people producing your wort, then and you bring the wort on site, then you can just do the ferment and the barrel side of things.
Yeah, I mean that saves you a day's work, but it saves you buying more kit, right? But
Yeah, you don't have to invest in the stainless, right?
yeah, but I don't know. Does 90% of the production of the beer actually come after the wort goes into the vessel? Probably, at least in my case, when you're talking 2 years before it's ready.
Hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but there's the time factor though. You've got to
it's a
divide by days. There's not much to do.
Yeah, 500 liters of wort. It's not going to be a 500 liter batch. It's probably going to be 5 different beers out of it. So.
Yeah.
You're in a huge niche. I've never heard anybody speak the way that you're speaking about these beers, about the sours. And I mean, you're extremely unique, and you could control that niche if you want to.
Yeah.
I can tell.
All right. Thanks, man. Have you had any sour division yet? Yeah, you go.
I haven't. I mean, I'm not a huge sour fan. I'm just kind of developing.
Yeah, whereabouts are you? Where are you based?
I'm in Titirangi in Auckland.
Titirangi, right. Okay. Yeah, it's probably harder to get. Although you can always go to
Beer Jerk delivers.
Beer Jerk online. I don't know if they'll put it online. There's so few of them.
They haven't.
Would you say there's a
But these kind of sours are completely different from kettle sours. It's almost a different category.
I do get a lot of people say, "Oh no, I don't like sours," and they've only had kettle sours, and then they'll have a mixed ferment sour, and with a fruity, softer acidity. It doesn't have to be this in-your-face thing, right? And they love it.
Even if you take on another person who does a bit more of the marketing, the front end stuff,
that's
man,
my partner.
you guys, you looks like you could control this space.
Yeah.
Do that right after you plant the money tree in the back lawn,
with your
Hey,
partner.
when you're doing your wort production, Jamie, are you producing turbid wort, or are you producing normal clear wort?
Yeah, no, I've never done that. Maybe one day.
Right, so actually, so you're direct pitching into nutrient wort. Cool.
Yeah. I actually spoke to Tom Smar about that, and I'm of the same opinion he had then. It's like, that's cool, and I like it, and I'll do it sometime. And it's really, the trad Belgian thing to do. And it produces some great beer, but the idea behind doing it is to give your culture that extra nutrient, harder to eat up straight away, so that the rest of your bugs can chew on it over time. But if your bugs are doing their thing anyway, there's no need for it.
I've been doing quite a bit with the guys at Dreyfontein at the moment, and the main reason they were doing it is that they find it allows them to manage the growth of petio, so it stops their stuff blowing out too much. It just keeps it nice and low and steady, and that, I suppose, from a process point of view, is just managing their flavour profile. They reckon with the Belgian cultures, they pitch them directly into full nutrient wort, that they ended up too much. It'll take too long to clean up, basically.
Yeah. So it all depends what you're playing with and where you are, and I mean, and the same thing is like everything. Not everything wild. Truly wild for me. Truly wild is like from out there, from outside, not I mean, house culture as well to an extent, but it's kind of domesticated. Spawn bears, they're truly wild, but then again, they're in a brewery and they're probably picking up other stuff.
Right.
Truly wild bears don't have to be sour.
No.
And sour bears don't have to be wild, aren't necessarily wild. So my wild culture that I captured from a garden, looking at under the scope, it's very Brett dominant, and it doesn't throw a lot of acidity. There's some acid producing bacteria in there, obviously, because over time it does build it, but it's just a light lemony acidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't need to control that with massive amounts of IBUs. So it's just, yeah, depends on the beast you're working with, how it's going to behave on whatever substrate it's given. If that makes sense.
Jamie, how often do you have to look after your cultures? How often do you have to grow them?
I get away with quite a lot.
Yeah, enough said.
Time flies when you're busy, and sometimes like, oh shit, it's been a while, and some of them you might think they're dead, and then a week later, it's great. So
You gonna take some of them on a round the world trip with you, or you just gonna park them until you got back and see what happened?
yeah, I did park them, and we didn't intend to be away. We were sort of going to go away for periodically and come back to New Zealand. That was the plan. It was going to be quite a trip. But anyway, so I was planning to do them occasionally, but I've done that.
So you're still planning, once all this settles down, you're still planning on traveling?
Who knows when that's going to happen. So I don't think travel's a very easy option at the moment for anybody. People are doing it, but it's a big risk. Not so much getting sick, but if you get hurt somewhere and things are still swamped, hospitals and places we're intending to go are pretty out there. So, yeah, no.
You can do your OE when you're 60, mate.
Oh yeah, we've travelled heaps. So, yeah, that's not beer. Not talking about beer. No. We'll see. I don't think travel's going to be easy for a while. So, yeah, we were going to go to Belgium, and going to go to Estonia and Latvia and check out all the farmhouse brewing, the true farmhouse, old, connected to the land. People think of farmhouse as being just Belgium, but it's not. Farmhouse is not just Saison.
Have you played with any of the Quebec strains?
I did a little. They're cool, and then everyone started doing it. So I like to use the little I've done. I like to use them to try and get a lot of expression out of them, rather than use them as a really clean, fast fermenter.
So how do you use them for expression then?
They like warmth, and like 35 degrees. Ferment like beasts, but it's about the balance of warmth and temperature.
So would you start something quickly with those and then drop the temp or something?
No, I always let my things just run. So
how do you use them for expression then?
Well, you let it get warm and you don't overpitch. That's kind of seems to be the trick with Quebec to get the most expression out of them. They're quite farmhousey, at least the one that I used. And
do you know what number it was?
No. I can't remember.
Because the common one's the Voss, which is the number 1, but
Yeah,
I had the number 6 strain, and that was quite pineapple and things.
it was
The Voss
a,
is pretty boring.
I think it was an Omega strain.
Right.
I did a farmhouse face off, so we used a Quebec strain and the Jovaru strain. It's not a Quebec yeast. It's a yeast that a woman has in Lithuania. I think she's 75 or so now, and she makes raw ale with it. And it's been in the family forever. And I think her grandfather found it in the forest about 90 years ago.
And that's pitched at +30s as well.
She does ferment quite warm. I can't remember it. I'd have to go to my notes for the temperatures exactly, but I ran that side by side with one of the Quebec strains, both throwing quite sort of farmhousey flavors. And the Jovaru was really snuck into the Saison territory. Ferments really.
How did you get hold of that one? How did you get hold of that one?
Omega used to have it.
Oh, okay.
They come in occasionally. It's got a really full mouthfeel, almost not syrup.
Was that one of the ones documented by Lars Goschel?
Yeah,
He's-
That's how I initially found out about it. And then-
Yeah, because he did some traveling in with Lithuania as well over that side.
Yeah. Great. It's
Yeah,
great.
interesting stuff. Eh?
He's really brought the idea of farmhouse being so much more than Saison to life. So
Mhm.
I'll get there eventually, and hopefully some of those old timers are still around.
Yep, and get back as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where you're from.
Oh no. Well, kind of in that general area, Ireland,
Yeah.
west of Ireland.
Right.
Yeah.
Your accent is different.
Yeah. I've been here a while. Yep.
Did you just join, or have you been quietly sitting?
No, I just joined. I didn't even know we were doing these again.
All right.
yeah.
I'm sorry, you missed so much.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's all good.
Yeah.
I got to
Alright.
shoot. Great to see you, mate. And keep on keeping on.
I will. All right. Cheers, everybody. Look out for Linda around and about.
Will
I
do.
will be. That's my partner's name, and she's very keen to try some.
I hope she enjoys it. All right.
When are you heading back down to Dunedin?
I don't know. I really don't. So life's in limbo. We've got a good number of weeks here picking fruit, and a lot of it's sort of prolonged because we allow it to fully tree ripen, like you do with cider apples, get them really nice and ripe, sugary. So the Cox's orange we're growing, they'll go to Rough Hands to make their apple brandy again this year. If you haven't had it, it's awesome. It's called Alswin. It's a little whiskey-like in a way, but
Say the name again, Jamie. Jamie, what is it?
Alswin. It's like Alswin, but Alswin. If you look them up, they're called Rough Hands. You can order off their website.
AUSW.
ELSEWHEN, Alswin. But they're as producers, they go by Rough Hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Elsewhere. Cool.
Yeah, it's great. So
Okay, so it's an Applejack. Sweet.
yeah, barrel aged Nelson produced Applejack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, Jamie. Thank you for
Okay,
giving us that time.
Yeah,
It's
all
a
right.
lovely looking bottle too.
Yeah, maybe I'll get up there. Yeah, I've seen it. It's beautiful, isn't it? They went to a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's really nice packaging.
Maybe another day when all the shit's over, I'll get back up to Auckland. Oh yeah, Auckland guys, there's another beer coming. A Gosa. It's got nice punchy acidity, really lemony. It's aged on loquats that are straight off the orchard here that was sent this week. So
What's the name?
All right.
What's the name, Jamie? The gossip. What's the name? The Gose.
Blume is German for flower.
Blume.
Bloom.
Blume. Yep. All
Blume.
right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, mate. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Jamie.
it.
Always happy
Thank
to
you.
talk